You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, welcome, folks. Colin Audible here on the show to give us something to talk about for the last 15 minutes. And it's more information I want to bring you from the normal big book of marijuana facts that I'm putting together, the science and statistics behind cannabis and its consumers. And we hope to have this book done for you by summertime for the big events. My big hope is Seattle Hemp Fest. If I can get a book ready for you by Seattle Hemp Fest, I think that'll give us a whole lot to talk about, and it'll be really good for everyone. The idea of the book is to give activists out there in the field something they can use to help make the case for marijuana legalization, because when you're out there, you can't really show PowerPoint presentations, you don't have video screens, it's not really easy to display these kind of things. So by making a big book, literally a big book that's going to fit on an easel, I think this will give reformers something to talk about and have draw people in. It's nice and colorful, and it'll make people want to stop and chat with you at your normal booth. So that's the basic idea behind the book. And what we're taking a look at here is going to be cannabis safety. And of course, whenever we go back to cannabis safety, we can talk about the DEA, the normal suit against the DEA for the rescheduling of cannabis. And in our petition to the DEA, Judge Francis L. Young in 1988 wrote, quote, "In strict medical terms, marijuana is far safer than many foods we commonly consume. For example, eating 10 raw potatoes can result in a toxic response. By comparison, it is physically impossible to eat enough marijuana to induce death. Marijuana in its natural form is one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man. By any measure of rational analysis, marijuana can be safely used within a supervised routine of medical care." End quote. 1988, a judge working for the DEA, getting a paycheck from the DEA, ruling on Normal's petition, said marijuana in its natural form is one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man. Now, the federal government, according to the Controlled Substances Act of 1970, regulates drugs that they consider harmful in 5 schedules, ranging from Schedule 5 to Schedule 1. Now, here is the breakdown of these different schedules and what they mean to you. A Schedule 5 drug is one that has a low potential of abuse compared to drugs in Schedule 4. So, little chance it could be abused. It has a currently accepted medical use in the United States. And abuse may lead to limited physical or psychological dependence compared to drugs in Schedule 4. So as far as dangerous drugs go, Schedule 5, low as you can get, really not that dangerous. This can be prescribed by doctors in all 50 states and includes drugs like Lyrica and Robitussin AC, the good tussin. Now, Schedule 4 is the next level up, a little bit more dangerous. Now, they're considered to be drugs that have a low potential for abuse compared to Schedule 3 drugs. So they could be abused more than a Schedule 5, but not as much as a 3. They do have a currently accepted medical use in the United States, and abuse may lead to limited physical or psychological dependence compared to Schedule 3. Now, it's also prescribable in all 50 states and includes such drugs as Lunesta, Ambien, Rohypnol, Ativan, Valium, Klonopin, Darvocet, and Xanax. Schedule 4. Considered, down there in the bottom end of the harmful drugs. Now, Schedule 3, we start to get a little more danger. Here they don't say low potential for abuse anymore. They say potential for abuse, but less than Schedule 1 and 2. So not low potential. Now they're saying there's a potential here. Okay, potential for abuse, less than Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. Currently accepted medical use in the United States. And abuse may lead to moderate or low physical dependence, or high psychological dependence, right? So the physical dependence, not so much, not the cravings and so much, but psychologically can really hook you. Now, this is a prescribable drug with some limits as far as how often you can get refills, you have to show up in person, and so on. And this includes such drugs as anabolic steroids, Vicodin, ketamine, pentothal, and Marinol, aka dronabinol, aka synthetic THC. Synthetic THC, Schedule 3. Now we move into the dangerous drug category, Schedule 2. Schedule 2 drugs, dangerous drugs, high potential for abuse. No messing around here. No more, less than, or more. This is it. Schedule 2, you're talking the drugs that have a high potential for abuse, but have currently accepted medical use in the United States. And they go on to say that abuse of these drugs may lead to severe psychological or physical dependence. Now, these are prescribed in all 50 states, but with some very, very strict limits on these, right? Like no refills at all. Doctor has to, call it in, all sorts of things that doctors have to subscribe to here to be able to prescribe Schedule 2 drugs. But all 50 states legal drugs, which include OxyContin, Percocet, PCP, aka angel dust, methamphetamine, aka crank, Demerol, cocaine, yes, cocaine, Dilaudid, and a drug called Sesamet, which is another synthetic THC, apparently more dangerous than the Marinol. And then that leaves us with Schedule 1 drugs, the most dangerous drugs, the drugs that we call illegal drugs. They have a high potential for abuse. They have no currently accepted medical use in the United States. And no, 15 medical marijuana states and our federal government recognizing the medical use of marijuana, the federal government holding patent number 6630507 on the medical use of cannabinoids for neuroprotectants and setting medical marijuana to 4 remaining patients in the Compassionate Investigative New Drug Program and updating their cancer.gov website to suggest the use of cannabis medically for both symptom management and anti-tumoral properties do not count as a currently accepted medical use in the United States, in case you were wondering. And there is a lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision. If a doctor was sitting by your side watching you do this drug, it could not be used safely. This includes all illegal drugs, including magic mushrooms, LSD, heroin, peyote, ecstasy, quaaludes, GHB, DMT, certain genus of toads known as bufo, and cannabis. That's right, cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug, no medically accepted use in the United States, lack of accepted use, lack of safety, illegal drug up there with LSD, heroin, peyote, ecstasy, shrooms, quaaludes, GHB, and bufo toads. You know about bufo toads?
I have never heard the
There
name
are toads.
referred to.
There are toads of the genus bufo, the South American toads, that their skin, their sweat, their ooze creates is a hallucinogen. You can lick these toads and trip.
I think I'll stick with my bud. That's just me, though.
Yeah, here's what I'm thinking though is it's interesting when I make this list how in the range of all the safe drugs I find these synthetic things, and once I get to Schedule 2 and Schedule 1, that's where I find all the natural things.
Yeah.
Coca leaf, opium poppy, cannabis plant, magic mushroom fungus, peyote plant, right? And a toad. Freaking toad. A toad is a controlled drug in this country. That's just, that's the way it is. It's right down there. So as we go on, Judge Young explained the use of a therapeutic ratio to explain the potential lethality of a drug. And here's the way that a therapeutic ratio works. It's a measure of the effective dose of a drug versus the lethal dose of a drug. And they call it ED50 and LD50. And what that's referring to is whether or not, the ED50 is the effective dose for 50% of a test population, right? So it's not going to be effective for everyone, at least half of them. And the LD50 is going to kill half the population. Well, when we look at the chart here, and again, we've got this color-coded by the schedule of the drug. Green is the over-the-counter drugs. Yellow is Schedule 4, Schedule 5. Orange is Schedule 2, Schedule 3. And red is Schedule 1. Well, the most dangerous drug down here that we got on the list, heroin, has a 1-to-6 therapeutic ratio that, 1 dose will get you high, 6 doses will kill you. But alcohol is a 1-to-10. 1 dose will get you drunk, 10 will kill you. Now, what's a dose? Well, maybe for me, a dose is 3 shots. Well, then, 30 shots will kill me, right? So, because I'm a big guy, right? But it's different for everyone. But whatever your dose is, 10 times that could kill you, And as we move down, we get drugs like cocaine and methamphetamine and MDMA, that's ecstasy, methadone, tobacco's a 1-to-21, rohypnol's a 1-to-30, ketamine, caffeine, you can overdose and die from caffeine. It's a 1-to-50. You have to have a lot of caffeine, but it's doable.
few rock stars maybe overnight,
Yeah,
pulling the
yeah.
all-nighters. Watch out, college students.
Watch out, college students, exactly. Nitrous oxide, Prozac's a 1 to 100. But when you get to the top of this list, cannabis is a 1 to 20,000. A 1 to 20,000. In fact, it's 1 to 20,000 or 40,000, as Judge Young continues to write in his 1988 petition, in his opinion on this petition. He wrote, quote, "There is no record in the extensive medical literature describing a proven, documented cannabis-induced fatality. By contrast, aspirin, a commonly used over-the-counter medicine, causes hundreds of deaths each year. A smoker would theoretically have to consume nearly 1,500 pounds of marijuana within about 15 minutes to induce a lethal response. In practical terms, marijuana cannot induce a lethal response as a result of drug-related toxicity." And he noted it was between 1 to 20,000 and 1 to 40,000, which was the measure of these drugs as far as cannabis, as far as its therapeutic ratio. Theoretically impossible to overdose on this. You know, you'd more likely die of the carbon monoxide. The lack of oxygen trying to smoke that much. I know that Richard Lee likes to joke the only way that marijuana can kill you is if a 300-pound bale of it's dropped from 30 feet and lands on you. Maybe that would lead to death. But, you know, this to go on, you know, I've shown this before, but the other ways that you might measure whether or not cannabis is dangerous, you know, don't pan out either. When we look at the addictive qualities of drugs and we rate them on dependence, withdrawal, tolerance, reinforcement, and intoxication, we see these big four over here with the worst qualities of addiction: nicotine, heroin, cocaine, and alcohol. Major qualities here in the 4s and 5s and 6s, the most serious drugs when it comes to addictive qualities. And when we go over to this other side, we see the drugs with the least addictive qualities. We find that to be cannabis and caffeine. Cannabis is more intoxicating, but other than that, it's down there in the 1s and 2s as far as dependence, withdrawal, tolerance, and reinforcement. Caffeine is more addictive than cannabis, according to this guideline. And then, of course, the big test for me would be, can it kill you? That would tell me whether or not something's safe. And when we look there from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, not one death attributable to cannabis use itself. 0 deaths attributable to cannabis itself. Meanwhile, people are overdosing on aspirin and NSAIDs like Tylenol and Aleve and those kind of things, those pain relievers, overdosing on them to the tune of 7,600 per year. With all illegal drugs combined, only being 17,000 deaths per year. And all prescription drugs combined, not people trying to overdose, mind you, not people purposely trying to kill themselves, but people using prescription drugs the way they are intended to be used. According to doctor supervision, 32,000 dying from the effects, from secondary effects sometimes. Alcohol, 85,000 deaths. Poor diet and inactivity, the Taco Bell lifestyle, living large.
That's what I was going to say.
Fourth meal. 400,000 deaths a year. And tobacco, of course, the big one. 435,000 deaths a year. And even if we talk about dependence rates, the National Institutes on Drug Abuse itself will admit only 9% of cannabis users exhibit any sort of long-term dependence, compared to 15% for alcohol and 32% for tobacco. Thanks for listening, folks. I'm sorry for the difficulties for those of you who are coming in to listen to Diane Fornbacher. I do apologize, and apologize heartily to Diane. This technical difficulty, Skype is down. Not much I can do about it. We'll try to get her back later on. For Cannabis Carrie, Ganja John Get Well, and Kaliko the Intern, I'm Radical Russ. We'll talk to you tomorrow. For those of you listening live, stay tuned for Toker Talk Radio. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
You see, Ganja John's not here. The whole show goes to hell. What have you done, John? What have you done? Welcome, folks. It's 2 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, Toker Talk Radio. We're going to talk a little bit about that Dr. Oz thing. Cannabob keeps sending me the clips here, and I'm going to try to get one to run, but in my application here, this Webcam Max, I don't think Oh, maybe if I do that media thing. All right, let's try that. Oh, and this had to happen on a day that I'm not feeling so well either. I'm kind of out of it, folks. I've got this weird situation going on. Not to get too WebMD on you and everything, but like right here on the top of my head, right there, it hurts. It's like tender. Maybe I'm suffering from painful male baldness. But that's what's going on here. And something in my jaw too. I think I'm getting a cold or something. I don't know what it is. Hey, John Doe Radio today had Danny Danko on the show, I understand. So catch the John Doe Radio replay coming up later today on the Normal Network, 6 o'clock Pacific time. Although I got to warn you, next week, John Doe Radio moves to 7 o'clock Pacific time for the regular slot. And I think I've got the final lineup figured out. And the Normal Show live replays are going to be at 1 o'clock Pacific, or the live show is going to be at 1 o'clock Pacific, and the replay is going to be at 4 o'clock Pacific instead of 5. It works better because that way I can put all the new shows in a block together, 5, 6, 7, 8, without splitting them up with the Normal Show live. And that way it'll run at 4:20 Pacific time too.
That's what's up.
Right, so you got 4:20 Eastern and 4:20 Pacific. We dominate the 420s.